Welcome to Everything I Knit in 2025. When I thought about making this video, the first thing I thought was actually, oh, well, I haven't made very much stuff in 2025. I haven't been knitting loads. It's been kind of low-key on the knitting front. But when I went to look through my knitting journal and my records for everything, actually, I've done kind of lots. It's almost embarrassing to say that I thought I had not knitted very much, and then I went through the house and collected everything, and it's kind of a lot. So we're not going to have any real rhyme or reason to what order I pull these out of the basket, but I do have my knitting journal here for reference. Now, I keep this knitting journal, and in general I have been pretty good about writing down projects as I go so that I have a record of what I've done on individual projects, so that I remember stitch counts. I could reproduce the project if I wanted to later. But I have found one of the issues with my 2025 knitting was that I was just enjoying the knitting too much to actually write down what I was doing half the time. So you can see the difference in versus my early entries where I have a photo and a yarn sample and like all of the information and instructions to duplicate the project, versus some of my more recent entries, which are, some of them literally are just a title. I have loved having the knitting journal to help me to keep track of my projects, to remember what I've done. I find it really, really useful if I want to start a new project and I don't have a pattern in mind and I'm just creating something from scratch. It's really nice to be able to look back and say, oh yeah, well, on 5mm needles, I can do this with these stitch counts. Or on 3mm needles, or for a shawl or whatever. But yeah, I'm obviously having some trouble keeping it up lately because reasons, I don't know. So we're going to do something a little bit different. I saw Engineering Knits video where she ranked all of her knitting projects. She put them in a tier list, and I really loved that. So I think we're going to rank these and kind of put them into an order of what I think were my best projects versus my worst projects, or not that they're the worst, but projects that I did not enjoy as much for whatever reason. Let's start with socks because I have knitted quite a lot of them. Give me a second, let me rummage around and try to find the other socks because there are definitely more socks in here. I don't actually even have all of the socks that I knitted in this basket. I have a pair on my feet. There they are. So I have done all vanilla socks this year, but with the variety being in whether or not they had stripes, whether those stripes were large like these or very small like these, where I was alternating rows of like a hand-dyed variegated skein with just a totally plain purple. And it gave a really cool effect. I love the effect of doing that helical knitting. But my problem with these was that I knitted them, they were supposed to be a pair of socks for me. I knitted them, and because I was doing helical knitting, I thought it would be easier to knit them on DPNs rather than my usual method of knitting on circular needles. And I didn't think about it before I started, but my tension is much tighter on DPNs than it is on circulars. So when I finished, they came out too small for my feet. I have giant feet, so I really need as much space as I can get, and these are too small. So they have ended up in my daughter's wardrobe, and she loves them. But I used the same purple that I used for the cuffs and toes of this one to make myself some shorty socks. Again, the only thing that I did here of any interest is a single stripe, but I love the way that these look, and I think I will be making more like this where they are a simple solid yarn color with just the stripe at the top, because I think it looks great. These were done actually with scraps. These were leftover yarns. I had made a full set of socks in this green and a full set of socks in this kind of white with the orange and brown and yellow spots. And I had leftovers, but not enough of either of them to make a full pair of socks. So I combined them and was able to make a very serviceable pair of winter socks out of that. And again, I love this kind of yarn. It's kind of hard to find yarn that's like this, where it's a hand dyed, that's white with just speckles. I love it. I love the fact that they don't quite match. There is much heavier color saturation of the speckles in this sock, especially towards the toe, whereas this one is a much lighter speckling. I love the variety. I love the fact that it really makes you go, ah, yes, that's hand-dyed yarn, that's hand knitted, and it just makes me feel good. I like it. Jumpers are a much larger category. Most of the other stuff that I've knitted is jumpers. Oh my goodness, they're everywhere. Let me start with kids jumpers, because there are only 3 or 4 of those. I have 3 kids and I love to knit for them. They love getting hand knitted things from Mummy. So last year, towards the end of the year, I had done jumpers for my in-laws and for myself out of yarn that I got from one of our local yarn stores closing down. And thankfully, we've not lost our local yarn store. Like, it's changed. It's kind of, the manager of the old yarn store became part owner of the new yarn store that we now have in our town. So thankfully, we have not lost the yarn store completely from our town. But when the previous yarn store was closing down, she was getting rid of a lot of yarn at really, really good prices. And I picked up, like, I don't even know how many balls. It was enough to make 3 adult jumpers, 3 children's jumpers, and I probably still have at least another adult jumper worth. So it was a lot of yarn, and I got it for maybe £100, which amazing. It is merino superwash wool, so really soft, perfect for children's jumpers. And this one I actually finished right at the end of 2024. So it's technically a 2024 completion date on this one, but it is part of the set that I made last winter for the 3 kids. So it deserves a place in this list. So this is my son's pirate jumper. We went for hours on Ravelry trying to find him something that he would like. And we settled on this skull and crossbones pattern. I will try to put a link in a picture up so that you can see. But he loves this, and we made it extra long so that he would be able to wear it for a long time. I mean, I could probably fit into this. It's big enough, and it's got quite a lot of stretch because it's superwash. But he just loves this, and it makes me happy to see it every time he puts it on. The skull and crossbones make me smile every time. For his brother, there's something a little simpler because he was less picky about what he wanted. And so I did just a really subtle color work pattern across the chest. And you can see the light blue section really well, but there's this gray blue section down here as well, in between here. You can't see it as well, but it gives a really, really lovely effect. And I actually just used leftovers from one of the adult jumpers that I made to do this yellow at the collar and cuffs. And I love that detail. I I'm such a sucker for like tealy blue and golden yellow together. My very first jumper that I made for myself was in those colors and I loved it. It was unfortunately made with acrylic yarn, so like I don't think I could bear to wear it anymore. I have become a little bit of a yarn snob about wool for myself. Superwash, it has to be superwash merino basically, because I have pretty sensitive skin. But the main reason is that I sweat a lot and acrylic really holds on to all of those smells, whereas wool doesn't. So I don't have to wash wool jumpers very often, but they still smell generally very fresh. Anyway, so this is another beloved jumper that belongs to my youngest. And this is the final of the 3 that were knitted for the children. I love this. I love these hearts. This was actually a pattern that I made myself because I loved the idea of these reversing hearts. So you get the light colored hearts on the dark pink and then the dark colored hearts on the light pink at that border between the 2 colors. I really love it. I loved the effect. I think it's a great way of using 2 colors that you don't have enough of by themselves to make a whole jumper. I had basically enough to do half a jumper in the dark pink and half a jumper in the light pink. And this was a great way of combining those into a jumper that looks really nice. And you would never guess that it was the pattern was designed to use up amounts that were otherwise too small. The other thing that I made for the kids was actually a Mummy and Me sweater vest situation. I made this out of scrap yarn, basically. My husband had made a massive cabled jumper in this yarn and he had leftovers when he was finished. And I was looking at it and I was like, it's enough to make a jumper, yes, but the yarn is quite itchy. Like he had said that it's quite itchy and he's not usually too sensitive to yarn being itchy. So I thought, well, I'll make something that can be worn over the top of something else. And actually I might have enough to make one for me and one for my son. So I made him this little cabled vest. It is cabled front and back with just 3 cables that run up the front, 3 cables that run down the back, and a nice little V-neck. And I made myself a version of this as well with a deeper V-neck because that's what I prefer. So he can wear it on a Sunday, and he does wear it on a Sunday sometimes, with this little white shirt and his little tie, and then I can wear this one and we go to church and we match, and it feels very special and very twee and very, I'm becoming that mom. I'm becoming that mom that cries when her kids do something that makes her proud, or when they get to wear matching outfits, you know? So that was a fun project that is not super wearable because it's quite a heavy yarn and it is itchy, as I said, but it's one that I have enjoyed because it was made as a paired project for my son and I to wear together. Now, all of those kids jumpers, with the exception of this one, I would rate all 3 of these kids jumpers together as absolutely top tier projects. The yarn is great. I love the look of them. It makes me happy when I see them. I always feel like that's the sign of a good project, that it makes you happy when you see it. And so these are absolutely S tier jumper projects. I'm not gonna rate the socks because they're all equal to me. They're just very utilitarian objects. I wear wool knitted socks every day when it's cold out. The only time I'm not wearing wool socks is in the summer when it is just too hot. These, I would say, they're like B tier, because while I love them, they are too itchy, too hot, kind of. I like the design, I like the pattern. It's one that I kind of made up myself. So it was kind of a lot of work to put these together, and I feel like if I had made them with a yarn that I liked better, I would definitely rate them higher. But as it is with the yarn that I had, because I was using up stash yarn that otherwise just wouldn't have gotten used, it's fine. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I have it, but they're B tier. Now the project that I think this is the project that made me think that I had not made a lot of stuff, not made a lot of progress with my knitting this year, because I spent so long on this cardigan. Now, this is made with cotton. So I think the first thing to notice about it is that it's quite heavy. It's DK Cotton Linen Blend from Rowan. This is one of the few patterns I've made this year. Sorry, this is one of the few projects I've made this year that I actually used someone else's pattern. Most of the things that I've made this past year, I made myself, designing the pattern myself. This is one where I used someone else's pattern, and it just took so long, and it was cotton, so it was quite splitty. There are things that I learned and things that I kind of got out of this project. This is the first time I'd ever done integrated pockets in a knitting project, but because it's cotton, they really sag. You can see that they, this stripe, it's continuous, right? And this is meant to be level with that, but because it's cotton, the weight of it, and it doesn't have any spring to the cotton, so it just sags at the pockets. And actually, so that was one of the techniques that I learned, and the other one was that I did this vertical button band. So instead of putting on the button band after the fact, after you've knitted everything else, you do this one as you go, and so it has the kind of vertical ribbing to it as opposed to the horizontal ribbing. And I did this with Intarsia so that I could have this ribbing be white while I still maintained the stripe pattern here. I love the look of it, but the thing that I only realized after I finished the whole project and sewed it up was that this is the side I did first, and it's a little bit looser. This is the side I did second, and it looks, I mean, I would say pretty much perfect. To me, that's exactly what I would want it to look like. But I only noticed that I'd had a problem with the tension on the Intarsia for this first side after the whole thing was sewed up and blocked, in fact. And because I'd had a tension issue with the Intarsia, the side that had the looser tension actually is slightly longer than the side where my tension was good. I think if this had been made in something other than cotton, it wouldn't have been an issue because wool would have had more spring to it, acrylic would have had a bit more spring to it, but the cotton is so heavy, especially on such a long, large project like this, that it really has just pulled, and so all of that tension, all of the looseness in that side has resulted in it dropping pretty significantly on that left side of the cardigan. So actually, as much as I spent probably what felt like an eternity, but was probably 3 months making this, I haven't really worn it. And that feels quite sad. So this has got to be like bottom tier. for me. This was a disappointment because I was really excited about this pattern. I was really excited about the striping. I love the look of these stripes. I love that. I love the color, like I love the ratio of the stripes here. But because it's cotton, it's just one that I unfortunately kind of regret making. I have other jumpers. I've made a couple of other jumpers in this yarn, and it does make for an excellent summer jumper for just kind of a slightly cold day on the beach or whatever in the middle of summer. You can wear one of those jumpers really easily. But this, because it's stockinette, because it's so large, because it's so heavy, and actually also because of the seaming, I would say I'm generally pretty good at seaming, but these seams in places feel very bulky, and I don't know that I could have fixed that. It's just one of those things about cotton that the seams can end up bulky if you're not careful. So you have to be really careful about your fit and about other things. So unfortunately, I don't find it that comfortable. I find that a small error in doing the this intarsia has meant that it's not really something that I'm wearing very often, and I'm not sure I'm going to wear it very often, which is a real shame because I love the way it looks. Yeah, so unfortunately that is probably D or F tier knitting. Like, as far as this is probably, okay, let's say I know what's coming. Let's say that it's D tier, because there is something else that I like even less. But on a better note, this jumper, which is made of Malabrigo Rios, not Malabrigo Rios, this jumper, which is made of Malabrigo sock, in this beautiful, beautiful red. I love red. I'm a huge, huge fan of red, which you might be able to tell by the fact that there is another red jumper in here. I love red, and this yarn is so, so nice. If you have never made a superwash sock jumper in sock weight, you need to. Like, trust me, it just feels so incredibly good. It is so wearable. The fabric is so nice. You could, it's just stockinette, so it's a very, very basic jumper, but it just feels so, so good. I love it. I mean, this is absolutely S tier for me. I wear this all the time. I love Malabrigo yarn because of this variety in the color. It does mean that, like, you can tell that the top is darker and then it gets kind of a lighter red down here. I don't mind that. I like the fact that you can look at this and say, yes, that's hand-dyed yarn. Makes you think maybe more, oh yeah, that's hand knitted as well. And doing this kind of yarn in stockinette really gives a chance for the fiber to show off, for this dye to show off, because it's not competing with any textures, it's not competing with anything else. Oh, I just love this. And this is, again, something that I made the pattern myself. There are things I would change about the way I did the yoke, because this is a circular yoke. There are things I would change about the increases here because it's just not quite the right shape for my body. I had a friend put it on actually, and it fits her perfectly. But for me, because I have quite broad shoulders and they are the broadest part of me, I end up with a little ripple around the yoke. So if there was a lesson that I learned from this pattern, from this particular project, it is that my body really suits a raglan much better than a circular yoke. So for me, I have much better luck getting a really good fit with either a raglan or a drop shoulder because they are very square, and I am very square in my shaping. But the round yoke is definitely a good choice for someone who's a bit rounder, has a bit more softness to their upper body. This is my other red project from last year. And this is a half sleeve jumper with lace at the sleeves, at the end of the sleeves. Now, I don't know how well you can see this. I will try to put a picture up, but it's almost like a double helix knitting lace. And I love that. I'm a scientist by training, and so the concept of being able to make a DNA jumper, a double helix jumper, was very appealing to me. So yes, this is again superwash. This one's DK weight, and I love the fit of this. Just some very gentle tapering in the body, and I was able to make it perfectly to my measurements because it was a pattern that I wrote myself. It's not the kind of pattern that would be helpful to anyone else because it is literally written to fit me. But yes, I just love it, and the details on it are so nice. So yes, this is another, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's S tier. Although I may find that in kind of spring and autumn that it really comes into its own. I finished this in the autumn and I didn't have too many chances to wear it before the weather got like properly cold. So I am looking forward to wearing this more in the spring, but it is an A tier project. I love it. This project is actually not one for me. This project is something that I made for my mother, and I actually don't remember when I made it, and I don't have any record of it. I didn't write it down in my knitting journal at all. But this is just a simple raglan with cabled sleeves. I have made this pattern a couple of times before. It's a pattern that I came up with to use up some yarn, and my mom particularly loved it. It's really easy to do because you just do these cables on the sleeve as you're doing the raglan, and then you put on as much ribbing as you want at the bottom. This is again a kind of itchier yarn. It's not something that I would necessarily choose for myself, but my mother loves it. She has left it here at our house because she's old, and when she travels she doesn't want to be carrying too many things around, but she wants a jumper at our house because it's cold and she's old. She likes wearing a jumper. So I made this jumper to keep at our house for her to wear when she's here. And she actually was here over Christmas for like a month and a half, and she wore this pretty regularly, a couple times a week, I would say. So very successful project. I did have to do some minor alterations after she kind of got here and was wearing it while she decided like she needed to wear it to kind of go, oh yeah, actually I would like this tweaking. So I just tweaked those for her while she was here. So I don't actually know when I made it. I think I made it last spring for her. So that is an A tier project, I would say, because it really fulfills her brief on what she wanted. Now, I said that I couldn't rate something else as F tier because I knew what was coming. And I'm so sorry. I am so sorry, Lucy, from whom I bought the pattern. She is the pattern designer for this. It is the Hoppy Time blanket. I hated knitting this. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. It has taken me like 2.5 or 3 years to make this baby blanket. it should not take that long. It's an easy project. I just did not like it, and mostly because of the baubles. I learned as part of doing the very first square of this bauble pattern that I do not like doing baubles. So this pattern has 5 different squares that you make, and I thought, oh, it'll be fun with the variety of patterns. I'll be able to kind of sit down and make one square in a couple of hours, which is true, but because I disliked the baubles so much, I really dreaded picking up this project. And I kind of I couldn't do all of the baubles at once, or else I would just never have gotten it done. There were squares that I liked. In fact, the only ones I really didn't like knitting were probably the baubles. I liked knitting every other square in this, but it was just the baubles. I don't like them. I don't like them. But it's a cute blanket. I just need to wind in the ends. I literally finished this last night. And part of the reason it took me so long to make actually is because I got to a point where I could not work on it at home when I had any other choice of what I could do. I would always choose to do something else rather than working on this particular blanket. And so what I would do is take it with me to the leisure center when I had to take my kids to swimming, because there wasn't anything else I could do except sit and watch them swim. So it kind of forced me to actually work on it for half an hour at a time, which was the right amount of time that I didn't get feeling too ragey about the baubles. So really cute, and I like it. I think I'm gonna be quite pleased once it's blocked and woven in, and I'll be very pleased to give it to someone. But oh, I did not enjoy the process of making it. So this is my one and only F tier project this year. Again, I'm so sorry, Lucy. On a better note, I made some headwear this year, one of which is this little headscarf thing. I can model these. Just a cute little headscarf with a little lace pattern. I actually did this from a shawl pattern. I just made it with lace weight yarn on lace needles, and it made a really cute headscarf. I definitely recommend this pattern. I thought it was a lot of fun, and it comes together really quickly when you're doing it on like DK yarn on 4mm. It's a really fast knit. Obviously with lace it takes much longer, but I love this. I love the way it came out. And I actually have made the full-size version of this shawl. It's really nice, yeah. Speaking of shawls, there is a shawl that I made that I do not have currently because I made it as a Christmas gift. So that, I don't remember the name of it, but I will include a picture of the pattern. I made it in the West Yorkshire Spinners exquisite something, DK maybe, which is their discontinued 80% merino wool, 20% silk, and I did it in kind of an olive green, and that shawl is lovely. I would definitely make another with that pattern. That one I would say it's either A or B tier. I'm gonna put it B tier just because I'm not a huge fan of shawl making, but I think if I was more into making shawls, I would definitely rate that as an A or S tier project because it really is beautiful. I'm just not a shawl knitter particularly. Now these technically were all finished in 2026. However, they were generally started in 2025 and finished quite close to New Year's. It was like still in the Christmas holiday period, like the kids had not gone back to school when I made these. So I still kind of count them as part of my 2025 knitting. First of all, 2 hats. These were so quick to knit, and they were actually just self-drafted. I literally just grabbed wool and went, I'm making a hat, and made up some patterns as I went. So for this one, I just did a traditional X's and O's pattern with some kind of just basic Peary stuff going on to make it look like a nice colorwork hat, and that used up scraps. That's such a good way to use up scraps of other yarns. Just make a hat, and if you don't have enough of one color, use 2 and make it colorwork. And then this one, I have this kind of color changing yarn. It's like 80% acrylic and 20% wool. I think it's James C. Brett, this color changing one, and I really like the gradient on it. So I have used it to do this kind of effect on hats before, and I like it every time. So I probably am going to be making more hats that look like this with this particular color changing wool, because it's cheap and I have some and it needs to get used up. So my hats, I would say, are probably B tier. They're not, they're a little itchy. They're not the softest yarn in the world. Now there is one other hat that I made. I think I made it at the end of 2024 or early 2025. I think it's late 2024. It was a hat for my husband that I made in merino, and that is so nice. So I think if I'd made these 2 hats in a merino wool rather than a kind of traditional wool, I would have liked them better. All right, last project, and this is something I am so proud of. The yarn came from a blanket kit that somebody was selling because they never finished it. They were just trying to destash. I bought it and actually unraveled the kind of, they only had done like a couple of inches of blanket. So I unraveled it, and there are like 3 jumpers worth of yarn in that kit. I got it for a really good price. I have made a very stylish, very on-trend quarter zip jumper for myself with the kind of high funnel neck in this Christmas green that I love so much. Like, this room is painted green, my phone case is green, my bag is green. I love green. And I love this. This is once again a self-drafted creation. Let me just zip it up so you can see. I did a 1x1 ribbing at the top for the whole front and back yoke above the arm split, and that gives it so much like movement and stretch and flexibility. And I actually made this specifically for exercise. I wanted something that I could wear for when I'm out running or working in the garden, something that will keep me warm on the coldest days. And I've already had a chance to use this a couple of times for that specific purpose, and it's been great. It's a fabulous jumper to run in. But I have also just been putting it on to wear around the house as well. And that is everything that I've made in 2025. It's a lot of stuff. To say I was surprised when I actually pulled it all out is definitely an understatement. I had no idea that I had knitted this much stuff. So what have you guys made in 2025? I hope you've had as productive a year as I have, or maybe not this productive. This is a lot of stuff. But I hope you have enjoyed your 2025 knitting, and that you are looking forward as much as I am to the 2026 knitting season, which is now open. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.